Yes. We on. Yes, I.
Yes, greetings everyone. Just vibes in. The Honorable Rasiadonis Ras Seymour aka the Colonel. Greeting everyone and blessing you in the name of His Majesty Ezekiel Kadamawi Haile Selassie. We salute you and we say Jah Rastafari. Yes, we did here and just vibes in, and while we was reasoning, having a vibes there, I decided to ask the brethren his opinion on how he see a certain verse in the Bible, in the Bible here, and it's 1 Corinthians 13 to 15, basically, and it's speaking about long hair with men and who, so we'll read the scripture from the KJV and from the JW, and then we'll chop it up to see how we interpret this. I want to see how the version interpret it.
Okay.
I was in myself, But you wanna you have
I got it.
the
KJV.
King James version.
Yeah. What verse we gonna start from? What verse should we start from? Should we start from
And what I was telling you.
Well, let me look at the section here. I think we can start from verse 12. Verse 12.
Yes, I.
Leading into it.
I'm thinking the same thing, to be honest with you.
Verse 12, yeah, because there's other important reasonments in this chapter, but you know how I go when we just vibes it.
Yeah.
trying to more focus vibes in, you know what I mean? But here we have 1 Corinthians. Let me get my hard copy right here, because sometimes there's some notes here. 1 Corinthians 11 and 12. Okay, so this section here, 1 Corinthians chapter 11. Yeah, it's a good chapter right here. Boom. Okay, first part. It says like the Christian, the Christ man order, and the Lord, the Master's Supper. And here we're at, okay, so let's pick up with verse 12. It says, for as the woman is of the man, even so is the man also by the woman. But all things are of Elohim, of God. Judge in yourselves. Is it comely that a woman pray to Elohim uncovered, pray to God uncovered? Verse 14. Doth not even nature itself teach you that if a man have long hair, it is a shame to him? Now, both of these are phrased as questions. Verse 15. But if a woman have long hair, it is a glory to her, for her hair is given her for a covering. Let's go one more verse here. It says, but if any man seem to be contentious, we have no such custom, neither the churches of Elohim, neither the churches of God. Okay, so these verses here, we went from 12 to 16. Bring the JW, and then we get in it. Yeah.
All right, the JW, 1 Corinthians 11, 12 to 16. For just as the woman is from the man, so also the man is through the woman, but all things are from God. Judge yourselves. It is fitting for a woman to pray to God with her head uncovered. Does not nature itself teach you that long hair is a dishonor to a man? But if a woman has long hair, it is a glory to her, for her hair is given to her instead of a covering. However, if anyone wants to argue in favor of some other custom, we have no other, nor do the congregation of God.
That's interesting. I'm just checking the Greek here, because there's some no other. I heard that part there. And then when it says given to her instead of a covering, there's one thing that just gonna take a quick pause right here. Just a quick pause right here. Yes. Okay. We forward again. All right, some exhibits. Just wanted to get some exhibits right here as we now examine what Paul is saying. Now in this chapter here, let's get to this chapter right here. In this chapter here, the whole chapter, he begins off. Now, we didn't touch on each verse leading up to this verse, but he's speaking about the head of every man is Christ. Let me go to like the first verse. Just going to skim over this. Head of, let's see right here. Where are we? 1 Corinthians, I praise thee. But I will have you know. But I will have you know, third verse. That the head of every man is Moshiach, and the head, the Ras, the Rosh of the woman is the man, and the Rosh, the Ras of Moshiach is Ezekiel, is Elohim. And it says, every man praying or prophesying having his head covered dishonors his head. Remember, he said that the head of the man is Christ, right? But every woman praying or prophesying with her head uncovered dishonoreth her head, right? For that is even all one as if she were shaven, right? Then he says, for if the woman be not covered, let her also be shorn, shaven, if she won't cover her locks. But if it be a shame for a woman to be shorn or shaven, let her be covered. And then it talks about how the man indeed ought not to cover his head, for as much as he is the image and the glory of Elohim, but the woman is the glory of the man. And then it goes into the man is not of the woman, but the woman is of the man. Neither was the man created for the woman, but the woman for the man. For this cause ought the woman to have power on her head because of the angels. Nevertheless, neither is the man without the woman, neither the woman without the man in the Lord. So that connects, just for one's listening. I know the eye is familiar with this, and I'm familiar with this chapter to understand what is being spoken about. And this chapter is about the Nazarene and the Christian, the Christ man order. And it's also going to speak about the Lord's Supper. We're not getting into that part, but it's speaking about this right here. So when he says here, judge in yourselves, is it comely that a woman pray to Elohim uncovered? You remember back in the church days, when the older church, black church, when the woman would have even a little handkerchief on her head? You remember that, right?
Yeah, and there are all these hats, these fancy hats. Everything is a fancy hat.
Exactly. And that was a way of them covering their heads. Among some of the European Jews, their women sometimes either shave but wear these wigs. What I'm trying to show is that different aspects, and black women also sometimes have their hair, but also wear wigs. Or sometimes they wear a wig and they wear the fancy hats. Or back in the days, sometime when they had their own hair, or they wore a wig, they still would put a napkin or something as a covering. Because going back to the ancient times, married women would have their hair covered. Unmarried women, like marriageable women, like maidens that were looking to get married, like young girls, like your daughters or whatnot like that, if they wasn't married, they would have their head uncovered. Because something about hair and men. I think most women understand that. We don't have to go into, but we do, one day we do have to reason on that. There's something mystic about that, right?
Attraction.
There's something mystic about the hair, the whole hair thing. You know what I mean? And if you delight in your woman's hair, and then your brethren come by and your woman's like letting the same hair all out there, it's almost like she's naked. in a sense. So the tradition was that when man go to pray, right, we don't, the only time a man will like cover his head, like you see like modern Jews in some cases, you see them covering their heads like with a shawl. Part of that goes back to the temple of Jerusalem being destroyed, and it's kind of like the shame. It's almost like Israel has been reduced to the level like the man to the level of a woman. So you see among some Yehudis, they will cover, like when they pray, they will cover with a shawl or whatever else. But that is only because of the context of the temple being destroyed, and in the Hebrew concept, that's like a shame. If you understand what I'm saying, it's like kind of a shame and everything. But it's like even among I and I, when we come together, Ayabingi or in different Rastafari aggregations, it's usually, with exception like Bobo Shanti, since they're on a priestical order with their mitres and their crowns and their turbans and everything. But amongst others, we still keep that order where it's like fly off false crowns. Like when we come in, but the women still keep their heads covered. So this is basically what the Bible actually, the setting that Paul is talking about, right? But then he says this here, since he's speaking to a mixed group, he's speaking to those in Corinth. Not everyone in Corinth was a Yehudi, a Jew, or Israelite, or a Hebrew. Some were of other nations. You know what I mean? And plus, Corinth was a place that was under the Greeks, and now the Romans had influence in it. So it's very worldly. You know what I mean? It's not back on the farm, not back in the old country, but this is like city, right? So he's speaking to like a mixed crowd. He's saying, judging yourselves, is it comely that a woman pray to Elohim uncovered? Well, in the Hebrew, Judaic, as well as the early Nazarene Christian way, it was not comely. It was not beautiful. It was not right that a woman should pray to Elohim, Yahuwah Eloheinu, Adonai Elohim. In other people's whatever, they do whatever they do. But notice the context of Paul. Now, when Paul comes to verse 14, that's why we had to pause for a moment, where it says, doth not even nature itself teach you that if a man have long hair, it is a shame to him? Well, you know what? Let me go back. That little typo right there is because I got to go verse 13 again. Judging yourselves, or judge for yourselves, judging yourselves. Is it comely that a woman prayed to God uncovered? Notice there's a question mark. That's a question. First question. What would the answer be to that according to the context here? Is it comely? Is it right? Is it proper that a woman prayed to God, the God of Israel, the God and Father of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, uncovered?
No.
No. Doth not even nature itself teach you that if a man have long hair, it's a shame to him? Answer. No.
Nature doesn't show me that at all, because
No.
just to use the lion as an example.
Hold on. Go to. You got it.
No, I just said to use the lion as an example, because if you look at the lion itself, the lion is the one with the long hair. The woman, the lioness have the short hair. And you look at different species, you see these things in different species of animals as well. So
you got the kill point. There. That we pause so we can bring this to you. See the male lion? Look at his mane. Look at his hair. Look at the female lion. You see the female lion doesn't have. She's a female. Anybody who looks at it, you know which one is the female. We show you a male lion, a female lion. You always can tell the female lion because the female.
But even with people, there's probably a lot of people who want to listen to this thing who follow horse racing. If you look at the horse, them, right? Some of the most beautiful horses, stallions,
Mm-hmm.
Long mane, everything, and them,
That was, I think the pictures I was looking for earlier before we started was on the other phone. I was going deep in looking up animals, males longer hair than females. Animals, males longer hair, females. And basically, looking at different species, as the brother mentioned, different species of animals. I saw some horses and they show the male and the female. of the same type of horse, and you can definitely tell that the male's hair seem to be thicker, fuller, and more so than the female. How about the peacock? This is the part that really caught me by surprise, because I took Paul up on, that's why I say rob Peter to pay Paul. So I'm paying Paul attention, and I said, wait, Paul said, does not nature itself teach you? He's asking a question. What happens with a lot of preachers and pastors? They read this verse, and because they're already in a Greco-Roman sort of a Christianity, they automatically say that nature, they don't even look at what nature teaches. Notice that. Most don't look at what nature teaches.
But even the verse 14, like you said, they could kind of manipulate how that is received, because just the way it states, it says, because here in the JW, it says, does not nature itself teach you? That's even like, it's questioning you right away from the start. Like, does not nature itself teach you that long hair is a dishonor to a man?
You see, I know what you're saying. And here's where we have to put it in the culture of Paul. Remember, Paul is a Jew. He was down with the Pharisees, so he's a very intellectual brother. And part of the way that Talmudim disciples and rabbis would reason would be like this. The way they would ask a question. It's almost like an ironic question. Doesn't Babylon love the Rastafari? You know what I mean? It's like you being ironic there. You know what I mean? It's like a rhetorical question. Does not even nature. But because you say even nature, people look at human customs and traditions. That's what they look at. They look at, well, what human people, like, for example, one translation says, nature itself teaches you neither that it is disgraceful for man to have long hair. This is the ISV. And usually I don't agree with these other translations, but what's so interesting how Satan is funny is that with some other areas that where it might be a little cloudy in like the King James Version because of Old English, it becomes clear in these other Bibles, and some clear verses in the Bible, some of these other translations, they fudge it. They muddle it. The ISV, International Standard Version, says nature itself teaches you neither that it is disgraceful for man to have long hair. They totally take it not in a question, but a statement. You see the question mark there? They add the question, says, does not nature itself teach you that if a man has long hair, it is disgraceful for him? It is dishonor for him? Question mark. So when I saw that question mark and I went over the Hebrew, I went over the Amharic, even looking into the Greek, doesn't even nature itself teach you that if a man has long hair, it is a dishonor to him? It's a dishonor? It's disgraceful to him? Because listen, people understood nature much better back then than people understand nature today.
But even in that scripture right there, it seems like a separate thing, right? 14 and 15, right? But 14 and 15 really is one conversation. I remember the way they.
Right,
I don't
right.
know. Let me look and see. Let me look and see in the. Let me look in the King James real quick, because I had the JW up. Let me look at something real quick. Okay. In the King James Version, 14 ends with a comma before 15 start. With a question mark before 15 start. In the JW, 14 ends with a comma. There's no question mark in the JW to the end 14. It ends with a comma and continues with 15, and the question mark is halfway between 15.
I get what you're saying. No, I get it now. And this is where I have to say I'm somewhat against the JW on this one. And we've done a lot of what you call them. JW brought out a lot of things, but I believe that it's people's sentiment about it than what history actually teaches you. Because we study history in ancient days, men that had long hair were not girly men in that sense. They were
Mm-hmm.
usually warriors. You know what I mean? And usually some of them were bloody men, were men who did men things in a cruel, ancient, hard world. You know what I'm saying? And what's so interesting is that I had this picture over here I want to show one-to-ones. The brother can't see this right now, but the peacock, the ones that have the beautiful plumage are males. This one here that I showed the brother, well, I read it to him. I'll read it to y'all. It's known in nature that the male is always more beautiful than the female. What they mean by that is have longer hair, or like with the peacock. Peacock is the females look bland. For real. You ever look at the male peacock and the female peacock? Anybody? This is nature. Remember, God created nature. He's the creator. We get so citified and so caught up in their cult, the Babylon cult and their society and the world, the Greeks to the Romans, and we get stuck in this Greek and Roman thing. It was the Greeks and the Romans that started to come in with that kind of shaved face and shorter hair. It was actually the Greeks first, and the Romans copied everything from the Greeks and added on to accept government. So it's known in nature that the male is always more beautiful in the sense of does have more hair, quote unquote, or plumage, feathers than the female. Then humans came and invented makeup. Think about it. Then humans came and invented makeup.
Well, even in the part here when it's saying that, because you know me already, I just take these things here to real reality to the ground. When it said that a woman long hair is a glory to her, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a kind of a statement to make without really putting it on the ground and concrete, because there's a lot of women, and I know a lot of women could hear this and attest to this, that because of the so-called beauty and luster of their hair, they get a lot of hate, a lot of flack, so there's no glory in that type of levity, where because you have such a nice head of hair that, you hated and ostracized among some people around you for jealousy.
Mm.
So I don't look at that as a glorious thing.
Yeah, but notice the world, the context of the world of their time.
But that went on back then too. That's the whole thing. That whole thing went on back then. Why did the queen have to say she's black and calmly? There's a reason she had to say that.
I'm black and beautiful.
Black, yeah, there's a reason she had to let them know this.
But like if we have to be just keep it on the ground, black people, our people are kind of like that anyway, in a sense. In other words, we already shining, so we just got to shine.
Even more.
You know what I mean?
So I look at this whole big thing as like people take this and put it as a statement that is a factual statement that being made, that this is like basically like a law.
But that's why Paul does what he does, not to cut you. That's why Paul,
I see it as a conversational type or rhetorical type of questioning,
Bro, I got it for you. What I'm showing the people, because I got to let the brother see this for himself, because I didn't really read it the same way that I read it before we started the record and everything. And some of the punchline of this right here might be a little bit lost. But here, let me share this with you. Look at your WhatsApp right here. It'll be coming through. And it's going to show you different species of bird, fish, like deer, and like feline lion. I don't know if it came up on your thing
Yeah,
just
yeah,
yet.
I see it. I see it.
Now notice, remember I said how the female looks? Like you look at
Yeah,
the top, the rooster, you know, the kind of duck. You can tell which one the male is. The male is the one that got the color.
yes.
And a little bit more, like a little more here, you know, even the fish. Look at the fish.
Yeah, the fins, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and the color. Look at the color. It's like, I'm red. Leave me alone. I'm red. And then look at the antler with the horns. Look at the horns.
Yeah,
The horns grow on the head just like hair does.
yeah. And the males always have the biggest antlers.
You know what I'm saying? That's why Paul, like you hit it when you said that Paul, there's like having a conversation here. That's why when it gets to the next verse, it gets to the next verse where he says, well, the KJV says, but if any man seem to be contentious or like want to argue. Now yours said, JW says here it says we have no such custom, neither the churches of God. But yours says something about that we have no other custom.
Yeah, we have no other custom. We have no other. He says no other, nor do the congregation of God. So it's no other, comma,
Okay.
nor do the congregation of God.
Okay.
So how it actually reads is how the last like 16 reads, however, comma, if anyone wants to argue in favor of some other custom, comma, we have no other, comma, nor do the congregation of God.
Okay. Yeah. None of the congregation of God. Basically, he's saying that there was obviously Paul is here as he does in the epistles. That's what the epistles are for. It's like you have a group of ones over there, and as you move on, they have issues, and they write to you about issues they have going on, and you respond to them with the best wisdom and advice. It's what they call a responser. Among the Yehudi, the Jews, it's called like a responser. You know what I mean? Basically, a community might write to their teacher or whoever, and that one will respond. So what Paul, and you'll see it in the letters of Paul. Paul says the thing that you asked me of. You remember? He'd be like, the thing that you asked me, or you wrote to me, or you inquired of. My opinion, my stance on. He might frame it a little bit, but he doesn't go into the exact detail of what was written to him. He's now giving his response to them. And on this particular matter, it's obvious that there was some dispute, you know, amongst ones and ones concerning, you know, practice. And he's saying basically in the churches of God, we're not caught up on those customs. You know what I mean? Because you're gonna have ones that are Yehudi, right? Say somebody who is a female, she's a Yehudi, she's a Jew, and she's brought up as a Jew, right? So she still will pray and probably have her head covered. You see what I'm saying? She still will have her head covered. Now, some Gentile woman who never had anything to do with Torah or that education, that custom, that culture, she might not do that. It's not like, well, everybody got to kind of do this. Everybody got to kind of do that. Paul is saying that these are not the main things right here. You know what I mean? Because when he goes on, he says, now in this that I declare to you, I praise you not, that y'all come not for the better, together for the better, but for the worse. And then he's going to go on now. He's going to speak about the supper. You know, how the Passover and the Lord's Supper is observed. And he's going to point out disorders in the supper. So what he's pointing out here in the first part is disorder in the order. You know, there's an order for the man and there's an order for the woman, and the two of them together have a responsibility, but each have their particular responsibility. So he definitely keeps the order. He's saying that this is what the order is. You know, right there. And even in speaking about like when he said like every woman that prayeth or prophesies for her head uncovered dishonoreth her head, for that is even all one as if she was shaven. Now, in Yehudi and Jewish custom, even of the time, for a woman to be shaven, it's like, what's wrong with her? You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
is she sick, or did she do something? Is this like for a shame or something like that? But now in some of the other nations, they had other customs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
See, we keep thinking that everybody had the same custom, but Paul is here. He's trying to minister Christ and the life of Christ, the liberty of Christ to different people, right? And not pushing so much his being a Jew, but giving his best advice from the best of that discipline. That's why he points out certain things about praying or prophesizing. And his conclusion of that still is Judaic. But he's saying that this is not what we're pushing here. You know, this is not what we're doing here. Because you can see that the main point he gets to is the Lord's Supper. And he says at the supper, somebody eats before the next one. They're not waiting for each other. That's why you're sick. Some of y'all are dying because you don't recognize the presence, of the Lord, at the table. So throughout this whole thing, he's speaking against divisive stuff. He's speaking against things that were divisive. He didn't say, oh, if a man has long hair. But in the world of that time, men were emulating the Greek and the Roman custom. See, we have to keep that in mind.
And for those who want to put the narrative that Samson was the only one with long hair, y'all need to stop that foolishness, because you're telling me he's the only one that was of the Nazarene vow.
Listen, I got this guy on the screen right here.
Even Christ himself was of the Nazarene vow. So you tell me Christ didn't have long hair as a Nazarene?
Listen, I got this guy here. He's from the 15th. I don't know what century. I didn't even get his name. Somebody might know who he is. You know those white guys like from like the 1400s, around them times, 1600s. You know how they used to have long hair?
Yeah.
From the pictures, they look like white guys. Some of them were mulatto and some of them, were not. But still, from what we see, back in those times, they had long hair. You know what I mean? Even after the Roman times, see, in Europe, among Europeans, it became style. The Greeks had short hair and had clean faces. The Romans also had short hair and clean faces. As we go history forward into Europe, we see they start to grow their hair again. The men start to grow like these, like
we
long.
Have to remember something too, that in them time, if you was a young man of a certain age, whether you was in the time of the Greek or the Romans, you basically had to shave, because you don't sign up for the army. You got to be a military person, so you have to fit a certain script. So most of the young men like of that time would be, cut hair and shaven to be in the military itself, So that's another thing, because you ain't want to be out there warring with long hair. I mean, just know, ask any Rasta man, he ain't trying to, from the time he start to grow his locks, the last thing he want to do is get in a fight.
That's interesting, because
when we look at war and long hair don't mix, my lad.
But when we look at warriors in ancient times, it's kind of like a little different. Doesn't it seem a little different?
Yeah, war back then was more combat. It was more hand-to-hand physical combat. It wasn't this, you step over here and we step over here and shoot at each other and these kind of things. No, these men was actually fighting. These was combat. This was face-to-face, look you in your eye, type of warfare.
And I noticed too, even when the men did have locks, and this goes to another area of scripture. I know this is not the reasoning here, but there's a verse in, I think, Ezekiel, where it says that they will not suffer their locks to grow long, but they will poll it, P-O-L-L, in the KJV, they will poll it. And that means actually like to shorten them. I noticed that in some of the archaeology, like I got this one picture here that some say is the Hebrew priests, right? In Babylon, they have like these long locks and they're playing these musical instruments. And you see they have beards, and they do have, profiles of what we can interpret to be, certain black men, from the profile. But they have locks, but you can see that locks are a certain length. You know, in the Abu Qudus picture, the picture that they call the Abu Qudus picture,
Yeah,
you see how his locks seem to come up to his shoulder?
yeah.
It was said that in some ancient times, even when men did have long hair and they were warriors, sometimes when they get ready for war, they would they would kind of like shorten it to a certain level. Perhaps for the very same reason that as war
Yeah,
got
you're
dirtier,
going to war. You can't go to war. Me, you waiting. You got long here. Like you're at a disadvantage.
especially when it gets down in the dirty. When it gets down in the dirty.
You're a big disadvantage. They could choke you off with your own ear.
Oh, but it's kind of interesting when you look in, yeah, in other times, it was like, yeah, it wasn't so much hand to hand. I mean, it was hand to hand, but it was like, yeah, they had other instruments, bows and, spears and javelins. But definitely the whole long hair part right there is the reason why it gets interpreted that way. I say once again is that Christianity popularly practiced is practiced in the Greco-Roman
Yes.
fashion, because even many of the Yehudi, even many of the Jews, they don't grow locks as we grow locks, the European Jews that is, but they do even have customs where they grow their hair and beard long. You know what I'm saying? And in their culture, it's not a feminizing thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Samson being the only one to have locks, that is a nowadays Black Hebrew and Hebrew Israelite kind of thing. In some of the camps kind of teach that only Samson. Now notice something. It didn't say that a man can only grow his hair long if he's a Nazarite. You see, the Nazarite vow doesn't say that a man can't grow his hair long. He can only grow his hair long if he's a Nazarite. Why I say that is because some.
Nazarite say you can't cut it, didn't
That too.
You can't cut it. The others they could grow it and cut it and grow it and cut it all they want.
Exactly. See, that's the difference right there, because also sometimes when people were mourning, sometimes they allow their hair to grow. It was just different customs. There were many different customs that were practiced. So when we're interpreting things like in the Bible, we have to put it in the context of the culture of the people. The context of the culture of the people that that even Paul is speaking. Now I'm looking at some of these other ones. Yeah, yeah. But if a woman have long hair, it is a glory to her. You said not so much so, right?
Not so much so.
For her hair is given her for a covering. It's interesting because Paul makes a few different points in the same chapter. Paul he know how to reason. He's a Yehudi. He know how to reason. He makes a few different points. Remember the earlier point he said that for a woman, it's better for her to be shorn, right?
Yeah.
And then he speaks about covering, and now he makes a point down here that her hair is given her for a covering. For a covering. Like, oh no, that's another page right here. No, I was on the next page right here. Yeah, for a covering. But then notice what he's saying. He's connecting the woman and her covering and her head with her husband and her man. That point is lost too on a lot of people. That in ancient days, if a woman was married, she tended to have her hair covered. And that if a woman was like a maiden still married to Bull, right, she would have her hair, she would show her locks more. You know what I mean? Because almost like the courtship mating, attracting suitors, so to speak. And then when she did get married, she would have her hair covered. So what Paul is talking about in this chapter here, he begins off talking about the hierarchy. You know what I mean? What is the hierarchy? He says, "But would have you know, right? I'm gonna have you know that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Messiah is God." And then he goes on to say that every man praying or prophesying having his head covered dishonor his head. What do we think Paul means by that right there? I would interpret it exactly as he's saying, that if Christ is the head of the man, if we cover Christ, Messiah, we dishonor our head because he's our head. He's our Ras. He's our Rosh. You know what I'm saying?
See what you're covering him for.
But every woman that prayeth or prophesies it with her head uncovered dishonors her head. So what is her head? The head of the woman is the man. See, Paul has an interesting way of reasoning, and there's other things that people lose. They think they understand what Paul is saying, and he's saying that long hair is shameful for man. But nature, Paul, the key word he says, does not nature teach you? Right? And then right after he said, listen, we're not going to contend about this point. We don't have this. He was having a chat because Paul makes a few points in these couple of verses. Like in the first 16 verses, Paul makes a few points there. But he's basically like kind of, I'm not saying giving, like I said, for a man indeed ought not to cover his head. So the woman covering her head, especially being a married woman in that sense, is showing honor to her husband, like the man not covering his head in that sense is showing glory to Christ. But if she happened to have a nice lock of hair, right, that is a glory for her in the sense of a lot of women seem to have a lot of trouble growing hair. I'm talking about just nowadays. I don't know. Was it the way in the ancient world?
No, the reason they can't grow their hair is because they contaminate the hair with all kind of chemicals, especially that thing they call palm.
You think so?
Listen, I remember. I have a very good memory of this poem thing.
I'm not just talking about among black women, but I'm just talking about like an ancient woman.
Nah, the ancient woman, them, to me, they had no problem growing their hair because I talking from my own experience. When I growing up as a child in elementary school, going into junior high school, I remember when perm took over the island. Before perm came, all these girls, my sister, my cousin, all the girls, them, I like everything, all had long, nice hair, luscious, thick hair. Perm come, and now all of a sudden the hair won't grow past the ear. The palm eat out all the fossils and eat out everything. Now we in a thing where in order for them to grow the hair, they have to put in locks. If they ain't put in locks, the hair ain't growing.
But I still think that the glory part, in the context I think Paul is speaking about it, was still a good thing for a woman because it seemed like society then wasn't so much like society is now in certain ways. You know what I mean? You know, like there was expectations. You know what I mean?
Well, the expectations was different because in those times, the women of those days, their standard of beauty and acceptance was based on themselves, on their own culture and their own people. When our black women them start to take this palm and all these straightening hair and thing, they was taking on a Eurocentric type of beauty, of a standard of beauty or acceptability.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got Samson.
So it was not based on Afrocentric beliefs or culture or even historical peoples. This was based on a Eurocentric type of acceptance.
That's interesting you say that. I have a picture from the Bible movie History Channel, I think some years ago, where they have the black dreadlock man, I think it's African actor, and they have a woman, I don't know if this is his wife, his mother, whatnot, but her head is covered. As you were speaking, I'm looking at the picture here, And I'm saying that like when coming into the Eurocentric style, right? It's like it becomes more uncovered. You know what I mean? As we're coming down to today, where in her culture, as you said, that was expected. That was a part of the cultural, mores. What was had a good, a good repute. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But now as the world takes over, what I mean? Even in the whole thing about clean face. What about the beard and the mustache? You know what I'm saying? Do we find anything in the New Testament where it said that a man is not supposed to have a beard or a mustache? See, the reason why most of the preachers, pastors, and the rest of them don't is because of the Greco-Roman, the world, the beast system that Revelation and Daniel prophecy talks about. Because the beast system, it says Satan deceived the whole world. So some people think of it as, well, this is a norm. But if anybody's honest, if you do shave or whatnot and keep your hair, in a societally accepted way, it's because of quality of life things to eat, to eat, to drink. You know what I mean? To do business or whatnot like that. Because you're not going to be generally accepted. If you're going to have your locks and your beard.
I and I Rastafari, I burn out scissors and comb right. Burn them out.
Burn out making baldness on your head. Making baldness. If it just happens as it happens from time to time, so be it. But making baldness, making the baldness on your head. No, the scissors and them things, they do have a function, but not for I and I. Not in the way of the world. But I gotta show you this other verse. I want to show you this other verse right here. Because since we are on this subject matter, what about this one right here? Let's see. Let's see. I'm gonna get the verse right here. And Ezekiel 44:20. Ezekiel 44:20. This is an interesting verse because a verse that speak about locks. I think, who was it? Was it Ezekiel that was grabbed by a lock of his hair? He was taken up in a...
44:20. All right, I'm there.
Okay, so we have, this is the main verse, 44:20. Neither shall they shave their heads, nor suffer their locks to grow long. They shall only poll their heads. Right? So, yeah. Curious at how the
It says,
JW.
they should not shave their head or let the hair of the head grow long. They should trim the hair of their heads.
Okay. Actually, the part about hair of their heads in the Hebrew, I remember with Captain Azania and hail up to Zion Warchild when he said Captain Lasagna, but love you, brother, still. But Hebrew Israelite brother that we had on Ross Lawrence show, What You Know About God and Chosen People. I was showing him that this word here in the Hebrew, perah, is here in the sense of long hair of the head. So when it says suffer their locks, the Hebrew word perah is actually long hair. It's like locks. It also means leader. So this word in Hebrew for locks, perah, both mean long hair, like locks, and it also means leader. It's like hair as in being disheveled, like locks on a certain level. You know what I mean? Like disheveled hair, but that word also means leader. You know what I mean? Because the word can mean like to act as a leader and also to let go, let loose, to ignore, to let alone. The word as a root. So the sense of like just letting your hair grow. You know what I mean? Letting your hair grow. So when it says to suffer their locks, the word locks is literally long hair, locks. suffer
Okay.
the long hair locks to grow long, in the sense of it's already long here, but not to suffer to grow long, 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 long. I know this goes different to some of the, Rastafari elders, from such time and generation, but just being, you know, scriptural in the sense of the glory of his majesty, something to consider. I noticed in the Bahitawi picture, the Abba Kadus, and some other pictures, some Bahitawi do grow their locks a little longer, but I noticed that some grow their locks, and do pole or what is it? Is it trim? Kasam? Yeah.
Yeah. What I needed to do too is explain who they're speaking of here, because this could be taken in context as it's a broader audience is being spoken of here, and I have not interpreted that way. It seems like this is being directed to a specific set of people.
Okay, so you're talking about Ezekiel. Here we're in Ezekiel 44. Good question. Ezekiel 44. There's a lot that goes on in Ezekiel, but it has a lot to do with future temple, like a future temple and the future temple offerings. And in chapter 44, it speaks of, well, in the first 3 verses, the gate of the prince. Interesting, since we spoke about Yeshua, his title, proper title, is actually the Prince of Life. The glory fills the house, the glory of Jehovah filling the house, verses 4 to 8. And then as we come into this section that we just read, verse 20, is the priest of the future temple. So this is to be addressed to the priests
Specifically
of the future temple, where it says in verse 9, thus saith Adonai Yahweh, no stranger uncircumcised in heart nor uncircumcised in flesh. All right, this is that verse verse 9, since the brother asks specifically, like, who is this speaking to? Here's the verse. Thus saith Adonai Yahweh, no stranger uncircumcised in heart nor uncircumcised in flesh. So look at this. People think that the circumcision, right, is in the New Testament, in the heart sense, is a New Testament thing, but we can clearly see that the idea of circumcision of the flesh also has the circumcision of the heart. What I'm trying to say, it wasn't a new thing. So when Paul's talking about the circumcision of the heart and all of the other Yehudi were acting all cray-cray, you know what I mean?
No, circumcision of the heart came before circumcision of the flesh. People need that is something that should just be common sense. That shouldn't even be something to be you should have to ask a scholar that. That common sense should tell you that.
Listen, I know you mean by common sense, but I've been saying this for years that unless I have common experiences, common situations, I don't have common sense with a lot of people. I just try to figure out what sense they got.
It's the sense ain't common. It's not common at all.
No expectation, or like the youth, like the youngins say, no cap.
Nothing common about it.
No cap, as they say, no cap. But look, it says no stranger, right? No stranger. Remember, the future priests have to be of Levi or something. It had to be connected with Israel in some way. No stranger, uncircumcised in heart, nor uncircumcised in flesh. Like you said, the heart before the flesh, shall enter into my sanctuary of any stranger that is among the children of Israel. Right? So this whole section here, from verse 9, going all the way down and past verse 20. Like, for example, let's go to scroll ahead. This is very important because it speaks about the sons of Zadok. Just keep that in mind. We're going to have a reasoning about the sons of Zadok. Right? In verse 15, it speaks about the priests, the Levites, the sons of Zadok. Because Zadok was a priest during the time of, I think, Solomon and thereafter. And some say that the sons of Zadok and the priests that went with Menelik, there's some connection there. All right. Some say the sons of Zadok here that are being spoken of would be like these priests that were able to go to that land where this man would be born there, Ethiopia, But anyway, sons of Zadok. Zadok mean like righteous, the righteous. But the priests, the Levites, the sons of Zadok, that kept the charge of my sanctuary when the children of Israel went astray from me, they shall come near to me to minister to me, and they shall stand before me to offer to me the fat and the blood, saith Adonai Yahweh. They shall enter to my sanctuary, and they shall come near to my table to minister to me. They shall keep my charge. Now let's get this here, that Israel, from Moses' time up until, you say, Yeshua HaMoshiach time, the Israelites could not, regular Israelites could not offer any offering straight through. In other words, we could select the animal that we're going to offer for whatever, but we had to, in covenant, perform it through the priest. In other words, the priest, part of that covenant was that Aaron and his sons, the Levites, would be the middleman. You know what I'm saying? I just want to get this point across to ones, so ones can understand the New Testament sense of it, when he has made us kings and priests. So that means that any Israelite that wanted to worship, you couldn't worship in your backyard. You know, you really couldn't. You know what I mean? Like I see my brother bowing down, like putting his head on the ground and stuff like that, and there's a tree in front of him. I think he's worshiping the tree. He's going after the... No, for real. You couldn't. Or you go out in the backyard and you're gonna burn some I mean, you could cook your food like that, but now you go and speaking all these priestly things. You know what I mean? You're in violation. And it's significant. I'm saying this is significant because it's like now we have the right in Moshiach, the King of Kings Christ, right, to approach as the priests would approach. We can approach for others. But the regular Israelites, they were almost like in like a probation in a sense. That's why it says that the Levites, the priests, the sons of Zadok, they shall enter to my sanctuary. That means they can go into the tent. They can go in the temple. They can go inside. We would have to stand in the outer court. If we're regular Israelites, we have to stand in the outer court. And they can go in the building. You get what I'm saying? And they shall come near to my table to minister. That means they go in and they do these things. We're outside and we just hear the sounds. And when they come out, they say what they say. And they shall keep my charge. And it shall come to pass that when they enter in at the gates of the inner court, they shall clothe with linen garments. Now here it echoes what was given to Moses and Aaron. Now notice linen garments, linen, fine linen, and no wool shall come upon them. Remember they were told not to mix the fabric like linen and wool. If you're going to wear something with linen, wear linen. You got something with wool, wear wool. You know what I mean? To mix them, Yah said not to mix them. So if we really would seek to get right with this, we got to start to check the labels of our clothing. I mean, I'm just saying, you know what I mean? In the fullness, they shall be clothed with linen garments. So the priest had to wear linen garments, not wool. Shall be upon them. Whiles, look, it says whiles, sound like some black talk. Whiles they minister in the gates of the inner court and within. It says, they shall have linen bonnets. That's like the headgear. Linen bonnets, the headdress, the turban upon their heads. And they shall have linen breeches, like pants, upon their loins. You know? They shall not gird themselves with anything that causeth sweat. You see that there?
Yeah.
Nothing that causes sweat. So the priests are supposed to have a no sweat ministry. All right? No sweat. All right? And when they go forth into the utter court, even into the utter court, what's the utter court? The outer court, to the people, they shall put off their garments. Look what it's saying here. They will do what? They will put off their garments wherein they ministered. So here's the scene. We go to worship. We're at, like, say, the temple. Imagine the temple is there, right? We're in the outer courtyard. We're not priests. We're regular Israelites. So we bring our offering, whatever. The priests, they get it ready. They go inside. right? We're waiting outside, singing songs or whatever. We're waiting outside, right? Now, when the priests come out, when they go in, they got to have these garments on. But when they come out, he's saying that they shall put off their garments. Because in the Torah, it says, you should not sanctify the people with your garments. He says he gives them the garments to wear when they're serving. And then when they come out, they will put on regular other garments. That's why Christ was saying to them about how they go in the marketplaces and like to be called rabbi or teacher or this or that. Because in the marketplace is outside. Even the priest, when he's in the marketplace, guess what? He's just an Israelite. Even if he want to do some priestly thing for you, guess what? You got to come to the tabernacle. You got to come to the sanctuary. You know what I'm saying? Because in order for him to serve in that sense, he could teach you things about Torah, whatever he knows, but to do his function, the garment is necessary. That's why I love that tune. Who is it by? The Robe. There's this classic reggae tune, The Robe, Jaja Robe, right? They shall put off their garments when they wherein they ministered, and lay them in the holy chambers. So why is it that we see priests and stuff running around the streets, like you know what I mean, with the same clothing that they, and they shall put on other garments, and they shall not sanctify the people with their garments. You get that? So when they are in the store or whatever, it's not like you see them, oh, look, there's a priest. How you know? Look at his garments. He's all dressed up. You know, he's shopping and he's wearing his garments. You know what I mean? Then it goes to neither shall they shave their heads. So this is the same good point the brother made there. Who is it speaking to? The priests, the Levites, the sons of Zadok. Neither shall they shave their heads. So the priests of this would not have bald heads. Because, you know, the priests in some, like in different cultures, I think Egyptian priests, at some points of their ministry, they had bald heads. Babylonian priests had bald heads. You know, some of the monks and others in other traditions have bald heads. But it says, neither shall they shave their heads, nor suffer their locks to grow long. So they will have locks, but not long. It's the priest. They shall only poll their heads, right? But notice what it says next. Neither shall any priest drink wine when they enter into the inner court. Now, some people will read this verse with bad reading comprehension and say that the priest can't drink wine. Some people say the priest can't drink wine. Does it say the priest can't drink wine? It says, neither shall the priest drink wine when they enter into the inner court. Is that what happened to Nadab and Abihu, the strange fire? Neither shall they take for their wives a widow, nor her that is put away. So you see, with the priests, they had additional stipulations because they were our appointment, right, under the covenant, right, to carry our offerings to God. In other words, it's like God is the king. We can't just march up there. We have to go to one of his ministers, right, and make our petition through the minister, and then hope that the minister go and deliver this to God, and then come and tell us, all right, this is good, this is good, this is good. Neither shall they take for their wives a widow, nor her that is put away. But they shall take maidens of the seed of the house of Israel, or a widow that had a priest before. So that's not the rules for regular Israelites. That wasn't a rule for regular Israelites. But that was the rule for the priests. And then here's the key, verse 23. And they shall teach my people the difference between the holy and profane. When the priests are serving in the holy place, they got the holy garments on. When they come out to the profane world, they leave the holy garments behind. And cause them to discern between unclean and clean. And in controversy, they shall stand in judgment. So the priests also were like the legal people. When something happened, they have a right to They have a responsibility, and they shall judge it according to my judgments. That means according to the scripts. And they shall keep my laws and my statutes in all mine assemblies, and they shall hallow, set apart my Sabbaths. Right? And they shall come at no dead person, similar to the Nazarite, to defile themselves. But, for father or for mother, or for son or for daughter, for brother or for sister, that hath no husband. So if one had a sister, I'm a priest of a sister, but she has a husband, guess what? That's her head's responsibility. That's the husband's responsibility. You know what I mean? But if I'm a priest and just people die, whatever, I'm not to defile myself for that. But for father, for mother, for son, for daughter, for brother, or for sister that's not married or that don't have a husband, they may defile themselves. And so then it goes on to give, that cleansing, the 7-day cleansing and everything. That means once they kind of defile themselves, they got like a week off, so to speak, to cleanse. After he is cleansed, they shall reckon to him 7 days. Well, after he's cleansed, you know what I mean? From that. And that meant that usually when somebody passed away, it's the close family that had to prepare the body. So that means the priest would actually have to prepare the body, of his dead, his relation, close relation that passed. You know what I mean? Anointed, oil. It's a very, I say, it's a very close kind of experience. They didn't have like undertakers. There wasn't like Egypt. They didn't have professional, morticians on that level. You know what I mean? It wasn't like that. The family would have to take care of it. So yeah. So this wasn't for all Israel. That's a good point, my brother. That was a very, very good point right there. But you can hear how it's similar to the Nazarene. Like the Nazarene was almost like, or the Nazarite rather, was almost like a lay person that because of the Nazarite vow got to be like a priest in a sense, had the same discipline. You know what I'm saying? Had something similar in that discipline. The only thing that the Nazarite, wasn't offering anything for anyone. The Nazarite had to go through the priest too. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So there's a question. If one say that they're Nazarite, my question would be, well, say you're a Nazarite and for whatever reason you defiled your vow, and now you have to, like, according to the script, come again. But then first you have to offer offerings. Where's the priest? What would you do? You know what I'm saying? According to the Nazarite vow in Numbers chapter 6, if one ended their vow, prematurely or whatever else, they still had to make certain offerings. They had to present themselves to a priest. So when the Israelites, some of the black Hebrew Israelites say only Samson and Samuel were Nazarites. Oh, people don't know Samuel had locks too. No, he did. Samuel and...
There's a thing that I know amongst my circle where, depending on what your transgression is, right? How much of your locks you have to cut. So certain offense, you start with the longest one, and if it's something that is where you basically, you totally disrespect the whole program, you gotta shave your head clean.
Yeah, but see, though, what you're talking about is what the scripts is speaking in the context of. These ancient kind of precepts that there were things that people were doing before the Torah, say, of Moses came into effect. And then we see Moses' law, the Torah, modifying those things. That's what the Nazarite vow does. You don't think people were growing long hair before? But it's saying that if people want to grow long hair, then these are some of the set reasons for it. You know what I mean? if they want to grow long hair and be a consecration to God. Somebody could grow long hair for another reason.
For another reason, yeah.
You know what I mean? But usually
just because they want to. There has to be no specific reason. You know.
But in the custom of the time, but I have to say this, in the custom of the time, people generally, like if you just grew your hair long, it's either you're in a state of mourning or on a certain level, you might have kind of bummed out in a sense. There's some people that understand that that to do it as a Nazarite, like in the way, say, even Rastafari, the way we as Rastafari do it today, in that culture, it would have had to be stipulated as Nazarite. Because if other guys just started to grow their hair and wasn't nothing Nazarite, it caused so much confusion. You know, the priest would regulate on that. You know, the community would regulate on that. You know what I'm saying?
Like the confusion we got now.
Exactly. And because of having the priests, not just the priests as the people, but having the Torah and having those who ministered it. You know, because that was their ministry. Their ministry was basically the scripts. That's where they derive, you know, their rightful authority from. And for them to just see a bunch of ones and ones in the community just growing their hair long and everything. You know what I mean? You know, my son, what you do? What's going on here? You know, oh, you don't grow your hair long? You mean like a Nazarite? Yeah, I'm a Nazarite. You better go see the priest. You better go see the priest. You know what I mean? You know, yeah, so Samson wasn't the only one in Israel. You know, because remember, even the Nazarite vow, remember, they were, what makes Samson and Samuel so unique, they were Nazarites for life. That's what makes them unique. They were Nazarites for life. You know, it wasn't that like, because if you read it carefully, one could say, I'm going to grow my hair long for the next 6 months, for the next year. Some people did something like that. You know, for whatever their particular reason, they separated themselves to God for that period of time. With Samson and with Samuel, Samuel's mother, I think she's the one that basically, Hannah, she's the one that basically said if she gets a child, so forth and so on, that she's going to devote him to Yah, you know, and so she did that, you know. With Samson, they was told, the mother and the father was told that he will be this.
Yeah, from birth.
Yeah, from birth. You know, on that level. I mean, even when we look at John the Baptist, people keep forgetting that John the Baptist also. You know?
Messiah, the Messiah.
And Yeshua, no doubt. It doesn't say so. The confusion about Nazarite and Nazarene comes in. But still, since Nazareth meant a place that was like a guardian place, a place that was like a sentry, guarding, protecting something. You know, some say that it might have had a lot of Nazarites or people who were like set apart. You know what I mean? It was like one of those kind of towns. You know, almost like certain neighborhood, you got a lot of Rosses in it, so to speak. You know, but yeah, it wasn't a thing. In fact, that's one thing that separated Israelite, or rather a Judahite, from the Romans. You see, is that many of the Judahites had beards and mustaches and tended to have more hair, even if it wasn't locks. They had more hair than the Romans and then Israelites who were Hellenized. Because remember, a lot of Israelites who were Hellenized, who basically shaved off their beards. You know what I mean? Trimmed their hair very low. Some joined the military, the Roman army, just like people joined the police force. You know, and they didn't have nothing there back in those days like, well, I get a religious exemption.
No,
the Romans wasn't playing that.
Your religious exemption is the grave.
Yeah, you exempt there. You offer the battlefield. You know, right there. You know what I mean? So yeah. Yeah, yeah. So the locks right there. That's interesting. Yeah, but all the hairstyles, you get to see that. You know, but yeah, there's a couple of other pics you'll see it in the video, because like when the Babylonians came in, and the Babylonians made engravings, and they show what the Israelites look like. You can see on some of their engravings, the features don't look typically like any European, and their locks look like somebody who have kinky hair. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because some of them, like this one up here, have shoulder length. It's like it goes up to his shoulder, but you can clearly see that he has a beard. You know what I mean? And he has the locks. You know what I mean? Some of those, like you know those reliefs when they find the archaeology, the reliefs and stuff, where it has like carvings of different people, where the Babylonians were like the Assyrians were throwing people into the water and beating them and ripping them apart. You can tell that that was one of the towns in Israel. So we actually have archaeology that shows that the Bible narrative about the Assyrians and the Babylonians is true, because the Babylonians made art about it. You know what I mean? Like memorial art to where they show what they look like. But ain't nothing new under the sun. You know, ain't nothing new under the sun. Yeah,
Since King Solomon.
the unshaved hair and beard. Unshaved hair and beard. You know what I mean? Unshaved hair and beard. So yeah, so nature. I think Paul didn't stress it. Just one last point. Paul didn't stress it too much, because I think the Holy Spirit, let him know that there'll be these dispensations. You know what I mean? Like everything is changing. Paul even kind of knew, that destruction, Jerusalem was coming. The diaspora. Everything that was the so-called the Jewish way of life, the Yehudi way of life. Israel is going to get its full judgment. You know what I mean? And therefore, it wasn't so much about upholding certain customs that we couldn't defend. You know what I'm saying? Not saying that he changed his particular custom that he grew up with. You know what I mean? Keeping the precepts. That's what they used to call it, the precepts. The beard.
I'm talking about customs. You explained something earlier that I was kind of like, when you said it, I was meditating on it too, because within the Nazarene vow, there is this thing about dealing with the dead. And you did a breakdown as far as when it comes to father, mother, sister, brother, that it is allowed to defile their self in that particular case, and then have a 7-day cleansing. So those who like to bring up the argument about Rasta said that they take a Nazarene vow and you're going to your father's funeral. Well, he exempt for that one. He got 7-day cleansing coming.
Well, you said Nazarene. I heard you say Nazarene.
Yeah.
Gotta pay attention to the word, you know what I mean? The word, you know what I mean? The Nazarene. That means you're in the King of Kings, Christ, as we say,
That's
Yeshua.
right.
You know what I mean? The Son who's in the Father's heart. You know what I mean? The Father who's in the Son's heart. Yeah.
Yeah, we could put one of my favorite tune. I got a few of them that is my favorites, but this one is from Tony Rebel, where he said, "Me no bow, me no give, cause Ras then a Ras now. It's a long time I take for I Nazarene vow."
Nazarene, yeah. You got big him up on that Nazarene vow. It's like, I would like to ask him, do you know what you're saying? You know what I mean? Do you know what you're saying? You know what I mean? But I think he does, Nazarite and Nazarene. Yeah, we're gonna have to revisit like really get into Nazarene and Nazareth is really a mystic kind of connection. You know, because in Hebrew, one of the words that mean to guard something or keep something, but like to keep something under a tighter security, is natsar, and that's the root of Nazarene. You know what I mean? It's almost like a almost like a guardian, a protector, a keeper in that sense. You know, it's like a more forceful way of keeping something. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's interesting that his title is Jesus of Nazareth, right? And his people were called the Nazarenes. And it's interesting how they basically wiped out that name. You know what I mean? How that name get wiped out and gets replaced by Christian. Now it's understandable to some of us why that happened, and that had to be for a dispensation. But now we're coming to a dispensation where Nazarene has to become significant again. You know what I mean? Because we're seeking to get to the roots, right? You know, because if they had remained faithful, they would have been known as the Nazarenes. You know what I mean? Like if they had listened to Yeshua, then they would not have to have gone into the Greek, you know, and everything go through the Gentiles. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like to even think that in the Father's will, that's one thing I said in the other video. Do you think that Yeshua, I'm going to bring a little bit of controversy right here, that Yeshua, at what point do you think Yeshua knew he was going to die in that sense? Because Yeshua says that some things that only the Father knows, not even the Son, right? He says some things that the Father knows, not even the Son. And then you see him start to reveal as the time gets later and closer to the time of the crucifixion, he started to reveal to them that what they're going to do to this Son of Man, to this human being, this Son of Man, you know? And then when he gets in the garden, right, there's the prayer for the cup to pass. Now, somebody might ask, well, if he knew that this would be so, and this is the reason that he was born for, you know what I mean? It's just a little question right there. I get into
you know I think already. So I think that long time, long before most people been thinking he knows. You know. So
I think it was based on reading the gospel. I think it was revealed to him.
Yeah, it was revealed to him.
I think the Father revealed it as, like, initially, when you see, for example, remember when he was in the synagogue and he read the thing, and everybody liked him, and then he kept talking, and then they hated him? You remember that? When he was in the synagogue and he went up to read, and everybody was like, "Is this Joseph's son? Oh, that's the son of Joe." You know, they were saying all these wonderful things. And then when he let them know, they wanted to push him off of the brow of the city. So it was like, initially, it was like there was a welcome, there was a potential in the early part of the ministry where it's like maybe the people will be saved. But as the religious folks, the mega Jews, as they started to get more in on it, you know what I mean? That's when you see things start to change. You know what I mean? And he began to peep that, yeah, they want to kill me. You know, these ones, and he started to tell them that, why are you trying to kill me? And they said, who's trying to kill you? You got a devil. You know what I mean? He became aware, you know, of that. You know, but that's a whole other reason there that kind of has nothing to do with the lions of Judah. You know what I mean? Right there. But yeah.
Yes, the lion's mane.
You're gonna love this other picture. You remember how the black man and the Ethiopian used to have the big afro? back
Yes.
in like the 70s and stuff like that.
I used to have one myself.
And how it can look like a lion's mane. You know how the lion has when you have it as that circle,
Yeah.
that halo effect right there. You know, but yeah, nature, what nature teaches. Yeah, let's seal this one right here because this is a good one right here. This is what we're at. We're at like 80 something, almost 90 minutes.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that much time passed.
Almost like a feature length. Yeah, the peacocks, all of that right there. Nature. What does nature teach you? You know what I mean? What does nature teach you? What do you know about nature? You know? But yes, I. We seal this one up right here, here. You know, on the here. You know what I mean?
See it up right here under here.
Yeah, but remember, Rastafari is not a hierarchy. It's a divine hierarchy.
Hierarchy, exactly.
Only that hierarchy. You know, yes, I.
Yes, we give thanks once again for the listeners. Take your time out and have a reasoning with us. We wish you guidance and protection in the name of His Majesty. Ezekiel Kramawi Haile Selassie, and salute you when I say Jah.
Rastafari. Yes, I. Rastafari.